Hi class, my name is Jason D. Simone, and today I'm going to be talking about per diem problems. So the first article that I read was called Per Diem Payments to Industrial Commissioners Raise Eyebrows, and this was written by Jerry Duda. And the second one I read was called State Board Members Quit After Exclaiming Exorbitant Per Diem Payments by Vinoy Sanchez. In one sentence, the theme of these articles, I would say, would be commissioners taking advantage of their per diem payments. So if you don't know what per diem is, it is defined as a payment for each day or an allowance. This term is used in this context to describe a compensation for work that requires someone to travel for work and or to do work outside of normal work hours. And it says when someone travels, it covers their room and food, and that's it. So this article talks about Senator Kimberly Yee from Arizona, who is bringing to light the abuse of per diem with several members of the Industrial Commission of Arizona. What she wants us to learn is that there are 251 work days per year, and commissioners get paid $50 of per diem per day for doing work-related activities outside of their scheduled work hours. She found that some members of the Industrial Commission of Arizona are claiming over 251 per diem payments a year. And she noticed that this doesn't add up because you shouldn't be getting paid more than the amount of work days that there are in a year. So she started doing some research, and she found that one of the members named Commissioner Michael Sanders had claimed 291 days of per diem, which gave him almost $15,000 in 1 year of per diem payments. This was just one of several commissioners listed who she found to be abusing this system of per diem. Some work-related activities that these commissioners used to claim per diem on were reading/sending emails, reading news articles that they claimed were being used for their line of work, and going out to lunch to discuss work matters. These type of activities may seem alright at first, but when you think about it, writing an email can take up to 10 minutes and reading an email can take even less than that. So for someone to be getting paid $50 for max 10 minutes of work, I think is ridiculous. And it still doesn't add up to where, like I said earlier, there's only 251 days and they're somehow getting paid more than the amount of work days in a year. So the person I wanted to bring up and talk about was Scott Pruitt. He was the Environmental Protection Agency administrator. In early 2018, Pruitt went under investigation for abusing the per diem system. He took a trip to Italy to meet up with some Italian environmental ministers. He spent 5 days in Italy, where he first stayed at a 5-star hotel for 3 days, where his bill came out to a little over $1,000. He then spent the next 2 days in Rome, where his room and many of his meals were paid for by the Italian government. However, he claimed that his trip costed about $2,000 and he was reimbursed that much. And this is all taxpayer money. On the flip side, a Canadian environmental minister went on a similar trip, but the only difference was her trip was only 4 days long, and she was reimbursed only $812 because she followed their government's per diem rules. Pruitt resigned from the EPA while the investigation was still going on in the middle of July. So, do I agree or disagree? I personally agree with the articles that I read. Being reimbursed for doing work outside of scheduled work hours is okay, but no one should be allowed to be taking advantage of them. These people in the articles we're using taxpayer money to be paid for things that isn't considered work. And I feel anyone who does that is just abusing the power that they have and getting paid unrightfully, and they should not be allowed to do that. So, how does this affect my classmates and members of my generation? One way this affects my classmates and members of my generation is that it gives knowledge of the issue, and that it can happen in the future if we don't see the signs of someone taking advantage of the per diem system. So this allows us to see what it may seem like when someone is doing this kind of thing. So if someone is getting paid more than the rightful amount of 251 work days, such as Michael Sanders claiming 291 days, which is just one of the main signs that we can look at from these articles to prevent this from happening in the future. And then another way this affects my classmates and members of my generation is in the future we can set up strict limitations to this so no one can do this in the future. By this I mean we as a generation can make laws so that no one can have over a certain amount of days and certain amount of money given to them for their per diem. And lastly, how does this affect me? One way this affects me is the people taking advantage of the per diem system are using my tax money to basically get free money. Secondly, this also affects the way I feel about these commissioners. It makes me trust them a lot less, and it makes me worried that someone who will fill their spot after they're gone will do the same thing that they did. And so it makes me a little more scared for people in the future going into these spots that have the opportunity of taking advantage of this per diem system. And on this slide are my citations, and this is where I'm going to conclude my presentation. So I hope you guys learned some new things you didn't know before, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.